Hey guys, Chara5 here, and today we're going to be drawing. We're here with another speed paint discussion video. We're going to be drawing NiGHTS and Riala from the NiGHTS series, specifically NiGHTS Journey of Dreams. Now, this is the final Everything Wrong With for 2017, and it was the last in the lineup of the December 2017 Everything Wrong With. And you might be wondering why exactly NiGHTS? It was released on Christmas, and you might be wondering why. Well, the simple answer is because there was a NiGHTS Christmas game, Christmas Dreams, but that was on the Dreamcast, and as far as I know, it does have cutscenes, but they're like 2 cutscenes, and like not really a lot happens in them. They're just like still images or something. So I really couldn't do an Everything Wrong With on that. So I figured, okay, what's the next best thing? Does NiGHTS Into Dreams have any cutscenes? And yeah, but same deal, you know, like they're not a lot of cutscenes, they're very, you know, short, and I don't really know what the deal with those games are. I know that you have like a guy named Elliot and a girl named Clara, I think her name is, but NiGHTS Journey of Dreams was the long-awaited sequel, which came out like 10 years later on the Wii, exclusively on the Wii. And I'd heard of it. I've heard of NiGHTS Journey into Dreams, or Journey of Dreams, and I was sort of interested in it. And the reason I was more interested in NiGHTS was because of the Sega All-Star games. The Sega All-Star games, which I'm sure all of you know of like the Sega All-Star Tennis, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. You know, NiGHTS is in those games in some form or another. NiGHTS has also been in other Sonic games, Sonic Adventure. Like, I think Sonic Adventure was the first time I ever really knew about NiGHTS because of, what is it, Casinopolis? Whatever, the casino level in Sonic Adventure, where you can play pinball and you can play like a NiGHTS pinball game. And to me, that was just really weird. I was like, what the hell is this stuff? I don't recognize what this is. And then, you know, NiGHTS was also in Sonic Riders, as an unlockable character. I think there are other games that are Sonic related where NiGHTS also makes a cameo. But I think my first real introduction to NiGHTS was in a PS2 game that used the iToy. Sega All-Stars something. But it was an interesting game. I don't remember exactly what the NiGHTS minigame was, but I'm pretty sure there was a NiGHTS minigame. In any case, I have been interested in NiGHTS as like a game and as a character, and this is the first time I ever got to experience like what it was about. So just seeing the cutscenes and seeing some of the levels, I was like, this looks not fun per se, but it looks super interesting. Like, I wouldn't say that this is something that's, oh man, there's so much replay value, but the world itself is something that I think that they really can't expand upon. The ideas behind everything that they have there are something very interesting. And the way that NiGHTS Journey of Dreams handles its story, I think at least is very similar to how they handled it in the Dreamcast days. There are 2 little kids, Will and Helen, who have nightmares, and then in the midst of transitioning between the dream world and the real world, they get stuck in Nightopia, which is basically the dream world, but now they're more conscious about it. Now it's more real to them. So they go on this adventure with NiGHTS, and they dualize with NiGHTS, which is basically just, you know, fusing with the character. They become NiGHTS, basically, which is a very interesting concept, but I feel like it could have been expanded a little bit more on. You have these other elements, you know, like NiGHTS is a nightmare, and as well as Riala, who is like the anti-NiGHTS in a way, like they're brothers or whatever, or they're siblings. They come from the same person, Wiseman, and just their designs are really cool. I think personally, I love Riala's design myself, because to me it's just like a bit more of a more complicated NiGHTS, but at the same time, NiGHTS themselves they're very complicated a design. When I was animating the Enslave for it, I was just like, man, there's so much like deep little frills and details on NiGHTS design, and it's really cool. And just, again, from a design standpoint, I think it's excessive. You know, I think like there's a lot put into the design of the environments and the characters and stuff. But personally, I kind of like the exaggeration of it. It's so colorful. It's so bright and so nice. And they actually, the credits theme is what? Dream Dreams or Dream, something like that. So when I heard it, I was like, this is a really cool song. I like it. And I actually ended up really enjoying that theme and listening to it a couple times. There are so many different versions of that theme too. Like you have the kids version where it's just the kids singing it, the kids and the adults version, the adults only version, which is not as sexual as you may think it is. It's just, adults singing it. That's the only difference. But there's so many different, like they have a version for Night's Journey of Dreams, Night's Into Dreams, all that. And it's a really nice song. It's a really cute song. And the idea that these two kids live in the same, out of all places, they live in the same town and then they find each other. I was hoping that they would. I was really hoping that they would like see each other in the real world and like become friends and stuff. And it's very implicit that they do. But I kind of wish that they expanded a little bit more on it. And it's very cute. It's very cute. Not much to say about the gameplay. From what I understand, you're just like controlling knights and trying to get as many points as you possibly can. But there's not really all too much to say about like its gameplay or anything. It's really simple from what I can gather. And I think that's okay. I think it's a little distraction that, you don't have to change all too much. But as with a lot of other Sega properties, Shenmue 3 is coming out, which a lot of people are like, oh, finally. I personally have never played Shenmue, so I don't. And just looking at it, it doesn't look all too interesting. But I do think that a lot of Sega properties need a lot more love. It's not just Sonic. And, despite being a Sonic fan, I do think that other properties need a lot more love. And, I mean, Nintendo fans have been saying the same thing for a long time, with what Zelda and Metroid, like Zelda still gets a lot of love, but Metroid has been getting a lot less love in comparison, and they're finally coming out with a new Metroid game. F-Zero is something they haven't touched in years. Star Fox kind of got bastardized for a while, but like this very similar thing happens with Sega, and like there hasn't been another Knights game for 10 years, and I feel like they have a lot of properties that people would love to see come back. And the thing is, I think that they kind of focus a lot more on modern things where, stuff like story, and it needs to have a story, and it needs to be, this grand adventure. And it's like, while I personally like grand adventures, kind of like Knights, I'm not going to refute that other things like Streets of Rage, for example, I think that would be another good series to revive, to bring back, because it's so people are falling in love nowadays with more retro stuff, more arcade style games. So I think that they could definitely gain something from doing these more simple games. Look at Sonic Mania. Sonic Mania didn't have a complicated story. It was just a classic Sonic game, and people loved it. People ate that up because it was a good game. So I feel like if they tried to bring stuff like that back, another House of the Dead, well, they're already making Shenmue, but like Space Channel 5, Puyo Puyo, Choo Choo Rocket, like these very simple games that can, I don't imagine that they're that hard to make. If they just made a sequel to them, I think that they would go over huge. People would absolutely love that stuff. And Knights is no exception either. I'm sure that they could make a huge profit if they made like another Alex Kidd game, which is just like, oh, after 20 or 30 years of not having a game. Golden Axe, Phantasy Star. So many Sega properties that people love. Me personally, I have no real connection to them, but I know that people really do like these games. And they're just concentrating on the one thing, or on the, how many ever things that they have, but they're not concentrating on a lot of things that they could be putting focus into. I think that they would go over huge. And I was surprised to see that a lot of people do find Knights as interesting as I do. Because, yeah, Knights is a very interesting property. I do think that I read somewhere that if Miyamoto had the chance to work on any Sega game, he would work on Knights. And that's at first it seemed really strange to me, like, why Knights out of all things? But then I kind of realized, because of how simple it is. Like, Miyamoto's always been about simplicity, about, like, fun in games. So I think that that's partially why he would want to work on NiGHTS, because it's so simple and there's so many things you can do with it. And, you know, I do think that NiGHTS is sort of, the design, there's something about the way Sega designers do things. It's just like, they make things so new, so like, where I think Nintendo designs are very like, oh, this is like simple, but it's also cool. Sega designs are very like, who would even think of something like this? Like, in a good way, right? Like, they're not inherently complicated designs, but they're also not simple, because again, who would think of something like this? It's not something that you just like, oh, it's like this thing that kind of looks like sort of a magician. It has like pointy ears, and it's kind of like a jester from the Middle Ages, but also, you know, it's part of their body, and they don't have a nose or like any other human facial features, and their outfits are very colorful, and their eyes are huge, and so are their mouths, and they have like these mask things. It's like, who would, what? But again, I do think that they have really, really cool designs. I really do like the designs. Again, mostly on Reala. I think Reala has really cool designs. The boss monsters, it's just like, what? They're so simple concepts, you know, magician gecko. Okay, what can I do with that? And they do something like so over the top and exaggerated, but it works. It really works, and it's creepy, and it's, oh man. And just seeing it, it's like they really know how to make, I think that they can pull off a horror game with some of the visuals that they had. And for a Wii game, it looked really, really nice, I think, personally. The CGI, because the in-game cutscenes were, I mean, pretty standard. They were pretty standard fare, but they still looked really nice. They still looked really well animated and stuff. So here I'm just compositing. This was really fun to draw. I went a little bit too big on their design, so I covered most of the text. And you'll notice that if you compare to the other thumbnails. But I also did most of it in Krita, as opposed to how I usually handle things. I did the shading in Krita, and I did the compositing in Photoshop, because I have this master file where I have all the thumbnails together. But and that's where I did the compositing, and I was going for something a little bit more subtle, because I noticed that I always had like really harsh contrast colors when it came to my compositing. So here what I ended up doing was having something a lot more subtle when it came to the overall compositing and the coloration of it. I didn't want it to be like super green or super whatever. And you can see it here. This is the final result. But yeah, I definitely want to pick up NiGHTS Into Dreams, A Journey of Dreams, and play it and see like if it's all that fun, if it's, you know, something that Sega should invest time and money into, because I think that they should. But until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't, go check out the Everything Wrong with NiGHTS Journey of Dreams video. But until next time, stay safe and stay awesome. This is Char5, signing off.